Hey everyone, welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I'm Mark. Thanks for listening and or watching, depending on how you're doing this. With me today is writer-director Joel Soisson, who loves my French, but we're going to talk about a movie of his that I had a chance to see that's being made available in America as of 4 or 5 days ago by right now on September 1st. On most of your digital outlets, Comcast, Verizon, Hulu, Fandango now, pick an outlet and it's probably there. And the film is called My Best Worst Adventure. But before we get to that, let's say hi, Joel.
Great to be here. I'm so happy and very excited to talk about the film and anything else that might come up.
Well, let's start with the obvious. How have you been holding up in our time of incarceration and isolation, if you will?
I held up pretty well. Did not get the bug. I, like everybody, we're all just 1 or 2 degrees separated from those who did and suffered really, badly and sometimes tragically. So that whole pall lingers over the whole experience. But I have this kind of survivor's guilt of being largely healthy, at home, sheltered, and nurturing my own misanthropic nature, which is to not engage with anybody and barely get to the end of my driveway to sort of glare at people that come too close to my house. I turned into that Clint Eastwood guy, the get off my lawn dude.
We've all been there.
So 2020 was my year of crusty old hermit, and then during that period, actually, I did a lot of writing, and that's what screenwriters have, the one little fallback benefit that they get to sort of scratch all the itches they didn't get to do while they were busily cranking out other stuff for needful employers. So I got to write a couple scripts that are one of which is getting made next week, and another one hopefully before the end of the year in South Africa. But and I also got to do some noodling and tweaking on My Best Worst Adventure, which we shot before the whole COVID of it all. Fortunately, because Thailand is still, in thorough shutdown right now.
Right. Well, that's good. Where is home? Not your home address. Where do you call home? Are you what state are you in? Where are you at?
State of confusion, which is near Seattle.
Yeah, that's not entirely inaccurate.
Yes. Little island, Bainbridge Island, for anybody who knows the Seattle area, which is just right faces Seattle. I can look at it and all the in-laws, my wife's family, who I agreed to live near, but still $35 ferry ride away just to keep a little distance. As we all know from family, they can be wonderful things, but
in small doses,
like dessert, yeah.
Everything in moderation. Everything in moderation.
So
go ahead.
No, that's life for me. Is now the world's opening up, and I sort of am too.
Well, that's good, and we're all happy about that. Let's talk about My Best Worst Adventure. Like I said, this is the North American United States release.
Yes.
It was released elsewhere previously.
Yes. It's been an odd journey, this film, because several years back, I shot a film called Buffalo Rider, and featured the same actors and same basic storyline, which was about this crazy sport called buffalo racing, which is really just kids climbing on top of stampeding buffaloes and hanging on for dear life and just hoping not to get trampled to death, which is how I sort of look at my own childhood metaphorically, but this is literally for them.
Right.
But it was an odd duck of a movie. Still is. It's out there, but we did great on the festival circuit. Got some nice reviews, but ultimately it's a family art film, and most families don't want to sit down in the States. Rest of the world is a little bit different. Certainly it played extremely well in Asia, but the subtitles were a killer because there was a lot of Thai language in it, and there were a little bit too, it didn't have the connection to the American audiences and English speaking audiences that I would have hoped. So we went back and we retooled it. We said, what works about this film and how can we make it more accessible? And so we did some reshaping of the film, but wanted to keep all the stuff that worked. And what I really focused on in this version, which I'm really fiercely proud of now, is the two lead actors of the film are just phenomenal. They're two 13-year-old kids who, one of was professional actor, the girl was never acted a day in her life. But I made them voiceless. For reasons germane to the story, neither of them speaks a word throughout the whole movie. And in doing that, I not only got a chance to sort of explore the techniques and the emotional responses that were so successfully done in the silent era before talkies came and ruined everything. But I also made something that now I think is very universal, because there really isn't hardly any dialogue in it at all. And when the Americans are speaking, they speak a little bit of English, but when the Thais are speaking, they're mostly speaking like the parents in a Peanuts cartoon. It's gibberish because it's gibberish to our lead character.
I was going to say, if it was important to us, I noticed there were a few subtitles.
Yes,
but a lot of times they would talk and it was a shot of her,
right,
just not with no interpretation.
And I wanted that disconnect, that idea that what would you be like if you're suddenly dropped on an alien planet and all the aliens are speaking one language with a baffling amount of cultural oddities that some of which are just annoying and some of them are threatening. And yeah, you wouldn't know the language, and she even goes to school, as many students do when they're put into a different country. It's sink or swim. It's cultural immersion. You don't get taught the language, you absorb it.
Yep. Through
the process of sitting in a classroom where everybody is speaking another language, and if you don't pick up on it, you're going to fail. So that's the challenge of just existing becomes like an existential threat to her, and then lay upon that some bullying, some abuses from parents, and an escape, and getting lost in the jungle, and ultimately this race, which, as I mentioned, is just crazy. And
it was really impressive to watch, by the way.
To me, that was so exciting to shoot and so terrifying, because these people are putting themselves at some degree of risk that I constantly was weighing: is this acceptable risk, or is this going too far? How
many of the people in that race? I mean, I assume that most of the people that weren't our lead male actor and the protagonist or the antagonist boy, I assume the rest of them had done that before. That was something they had done.
So that was a safer go for them. But to put your lead actors on buffaloes, I mean, and they're city boys, so they're as unfamiliar with this kind of nonsense any more than you or I. Well, I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, being thrown on bareback on top of a galloping horse would be a little intimidating.
Oh yeah.
And now you've got horns and hooves and far less guardrails than you have in a normal horse race. So that all kind of really energized me, and to be able to tell a story that ultimately gets back to the films I love, like Seabiscuit and National Velvet and Black Beauty and all that kind of stuff. And make it touching if possible, where people come away with something, a little smile and some tears.
Yeah, I noticed this this cut. So the original release was Buffalo Rider. This is My Best Worst Adventure. This is about 10-11 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
Than that original version. Was it really just a matter of going back and just kind of looking, and as you said, looking at what worked and kind of discarding what wasn't, and then just kind of was it a reconfiguring, or was it just cutting parts out that didn't work and then finding out the rest?
It was all those things. I mean, I did cut out some things like, happens to me on other films, and it happens to my peers all the time, where there's scenes that you actually love, but you realize you really don't need them. And you kind of, I know I've never had this opportunity before, and filmmakers, I'm sure, can relate to this, is you make a film, you are immersed in it. I'm sure it's the same with art, it's same with music, where you lose your perspective. Is this really good? Is this really important? There's this feeling like, especially if you're a writer director, that everything you've done is pure gold and magic and needs to be in the film. And then if you have, like, I got 3 years approximately of distance on the film, so that when I picked it up again and looked at it, I was looking at it not as a filmmaker, but as an audience, and going, when they're, with all due respect to the Thai culture, which I have enormous respect for, we can't spend too much time in a Thai household listening to them speak subtitled Thai. That they're saying important things, but they're not necessarily important to our central characters or the central story. So a lot of that was elimination. A lot of it was sort of shaping and pulling the dramatic stuff forward, the eye candy forward, the heartstrings, all that stuff. Just, it's almost like you take a soup and you boil off the water, and what you have then is more flavorful and more dense and sort of satisfying.
Right. Let's look at, you're a writer and a director and a producer. You produced Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure
a while back, yeah.
If that is actually correct online, but no, some horror, some thriller, stuff like that, and then you get this movie about this Thai American teenager who's taken out of the city by her American father and sent away for the summer to this Thai farm out in the middle of nowhere. Where did that come from?
I was making predictably, a little horror, little action, intrigue horror film in Bangkok called Cam to Cam. And out on IFC midnight, I think, still, for anyone who's interested. But
I'm always interested in good little horror film, so I saw that. I'm going to see where I can find it.
It's got a trippy premise. I'll only say that it's got a little twist in the first act that sort of shapes everything that you see afterwards, and completely turns it upside down. But what was the moment for me was, we're making this film, and I'm sitting on the set talking to our producer, who was a woman named Cherrywan Tabornan, who actually started talking to me about her life growing up in away from the city in a little tiny village near the Cambodian border. And what they did was this crazy, buffalo racing thing, which is actually in the rural areas of Thailand. It is every bit their Kentucky Derby. I mean, the guys that grow up to be superstars that win these races are, they're every bit as big as Tom Brady, so the only thing about it was I was sort of in disbelief, because when she's talking about, like, yeah, but 8-year-old kids are doing this, I'm going, this is just, it would never happen in my world.
It makes mutton busting look pretty tame.
Yes. And so I suddenly flashed on one of those beloved horse racing stories that I got to transpose onto an alien planet, ostensibly. And so I got to scratch all my sort of horror action itches, in some comedy, but also there's just so much more opportunity for not only pulling heartstrings and, you know, the sentiment of it all, but also this just timeliness for me was that, you know, we're so divided culturally and politically, and all the things that we know are just so much a part of who we are these days, that it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of crossover, like seeing two factions from completely different worlds find that common ground and find connections. And it's really, that's at the heart of it, was just this whole idea of being able to show people at ultimately their best, even if they have to go through their worst to get there.
And had you always hoped to retool or work with Buffalo Rider somehow to actually get it in front of an American audience to where they would appreciate it?
I didn't.
Or had you given it up before all of this free time?
The answer is sort of yes to both of those questions. The shutdown gave me that opportunity to actually focus on it, because I had no other distractions really, except for some writing. But it was because Buffalo Rider did so well. I watched it, which, by the way, we independent filmmakers rarely get to see our films in theaters anymore, except on the festival circuits. And now the festivals are shut down. But in this particular case, I got to see the film with audiences of 300, 500 people from country after country, from Beijing to Thailand to Europe and all over, and they all responded the same way. They sat down, the room went dark, and they were entranced. So I knew something was right about this thing, and there was this particular issue that we Americans and some of the other English-speaking countries have with the foreignness of movies, that's off-putting to people. And unfortunately, I'm not proud of that as an American, that we can only see the value of American-themed films. But I just knew that if I could find that way into an American audience, which, you know, based on, I think we're 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I think we're doing something right. But it's that was the hook, that was the challenge, and I wouldn't have done it because it was hell to try to do all that stuff on my own, because all my crew, all my post people, everybody was gone at that point. But it was really, I think, a worthwhile challenge to make it so that Americans could enjoy it the way everyone else seemingly had.
I definitely think that it should be accessible to anyone that wants to see a good story with some genuine emotion. And you're right, your two leads are great in this. Jenny, whose name I'm not going to butcher, but I believe Lily
Patra.
She portrays so much without speaking a word that it is just, I don't know how much dialogue she had in the original version, but I don't think she needed it.
She didn't say a word in the original version either. It's just everybody else was saying a lot more words around her. But fascinating study, just as a separate thing, just again from a filmmaking perspective, to take a risk on an actor who has never acted a day in her life in a film that's peopled by other children and animals was a daunting kind of situation. But what made it even more fascinating for me was that she not only had never acted on anything, school play or whatever, but she had not even been invited to audition. She literally was truant from her high school, or actually grade school, now I think about it, and was out just wandering around looking for something to do, and saw this audition and walked in going, what the hell, let me see what this is about. I mean, she was so disconnected from the process. And just something, because you can't audition in a normal way when you don't have dialogue to read, right?
Right.
So she had to just stand in front of the camera. I'm getting this as a feed from, I'm still in Seattle when this is going on. So, which by the way, is not a bad thing, because you get to see what the camera sees that way, not what you feel in the room, which can be often very deceptive. But she just stood there and started talking about herself. And I realized that this is the girl in the script. She's like she's living with her grandmother, is frustrated, acting out. She's rebellious, won't even go to school, just wants out. And I go, well, if I can just tap into that, if I can just find how accessible that experience is, I think I can get away with this. And she's just magically just accessible by look. I mean, she's beautiful, and she's just, you feel drawn to her. And it wasn't hard at all. At the end of the day, she was so innately gifted that I basically got out of her way.
Nice. That's a very old Hollywood story. I just walked in off the street.
I know, it's like Lana Turner in the coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard, and like, hey, you want to be in a movie? Well, I guess so, as soon as my shift's over.
Yeah, that's crazy. So no, she's fabulous. She didn't, I don't know if she's done anything since, or if she wants to do anything. I would be interested to see that.
Well, I'm hoping that, well, it's already happened with nearly every review that we've gotten has cited her as just a discovery. So in my opinion, it will not be long before you see her in other fare.
It's good. That would be a shame if we did not. So again, it's really wonderful. I think what you have now is just, it should be accessible to everyone. I hope people take the time, because we still all have time, to go and plumb. You don't even have to plumb the depths. It's a new release. It should be near the top of your queues and your new release things on whatever your streaming outlet of choice is. I know we all have many.
We do, and I'm completely, as an old school filmmaker who started with real film and 2 outlets, theaters and video, that now you just, like, rather than say all the ways you can find it, just type it into the old internet and it will show up somewhere.
Yeah, we have an embarrassment of content riches.
Yes,
and yes, sometimes that embarrassment of riches of content is not the greatest content. But my best worst adventure is certainly not the worst content by far. It's definitely in the, go find it and check it out. Sit down. It's not an action piece. It's a character piece, people. You're going to have to learn to deal with people again. But I think you're not going to have to listen to too many of them talk in this. So, you don't have to listen to people talk if you don't want to listen to people talk.
it's a good first step for people that don't want to completely start relating to people yet. So you can sort of make that half step, watch the movie, and you sort of feel like you're back in the human race, but you're not fully committed.
And I think it will open some people's eyes to watching films that may have some subtitles or have some foreign language elements or different cultural aspects, because you can always find something in any film. You should be able to find something, if the filmmakers have done their job, which you have here, that you should be able to find one thing that you go, oh, I know that person, or I know that situation, or I know, whatever. There's something in there. Any movie, for me, any movie that has a grandmother, I'm like, I know that grandmother. I did not have my grandmother long, but that's her right there. So but there should be something for you, and in good films there is something for you to get, even if it's not yours. And this is a good one.
Well spoken. And I also, just to add to that a little bit, the other thing I always had in mind making the movie was, this is to me, an ideal film for parents who are just totally exasperated about what are we going to watch on family night that isn't, you know, the 43rd viewing of Shrek 2 or, you know, fill in the Disney blank. I mean, there are other films out there.
And this would be a good family night. Even, yeah, no, I was going to go somewhere else, but I'm not going to go there. But no, it's definitely it would be a good family if you have, especially if you've got some younger teens that you're stuck in the house with. I think maybe, you know, that rebellious teen attitude might learn something here.
It pairs really, really well with pizza, by the way.
Oh, does it? Any particular kind, as long as it's not Hawaiian, because pineapple does not go on pizza.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're gonna have to have a separate show for that because I might dispute that allegation. But you know, sad aside, this is a horrible, horrible segue, but I can't help it. The whole water buffalo lifestyle, where it is their horse, it's their livestock, it's their transportation, it's their pets, it's their way of life. It's disappearing because the tractor and mechanization and industrialization, like it did a century ago in our country, is just wiping it out. And these people love their animals so much, but they have to give them up. And what they give them up to is people who turn them into meat. And so my only concern is do not order pizza with ground water buffalo on it, because that would be so wrong for the movie.
Yes, I will allow that caveat, as long as you didn't say no meat.
Yeah, meat's okay. No ground buffalo.
No, yeah, no ground.
And
buffalo.
maybe or maybe not pineapple. We'll see. But that's,
maybe not.
Maybe on your show we can't extol the virtues of pineapple. So no pineapple.
No pineapple right now. So there you go. Well, Joel, I appreciate you taking time to come on and talk about My Best Worst Adventure. It really is a lovely little film. I really did enjoy it, because I thought I was just going to watch. Oh, it's going to be a cute. Take this the way I mean it, please. It's going to be a cute little indie character film. I was like, okay, but it winds up playing as so much more than that. And so I was pleasantly surprised. I got more than I thought I was going to get, and I thought I was going to have a good time and enjoy the film. And it surpassed that expectation. And so I thank you for that.
Well, I get that from a lot of adults. So I love both the fact that they connect with it, and maybe we start with diminished expectations, which makes the bar even lower to have to get over. But however that works, I've been just thrilled by the response that we've gotten. So thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, my bar is actually pretty high, because I watch enough bad things that sometimes I think I'm going to be overly critical. And so when I don't have to be overly critical, I really enjoy a film. So
nice.
No, you did not start with a low bar, believe me. So
okay, well, thank you for that. Much
no problem. Again, My Best Worst Adventure. Pick your poison in the streaming world, and you should be able to find it right now as we speak.
And next month we'll be out to more streaming services. So if for some reason you don't want to do that whole like pay-per-view-y kind of thing that I think they may try to trap you into, which I would heavily encourage, by the way, but it will be on other platforms as we go. So see it.
See it. If you don't have it today, you will have it soon. Thank you again. I appreciate you coming. I look forward to seeing what you do next. Since you have one filming, you said starting next week.
Next week.
How about a non-committal teaser? What's our genre for next week?
A little back into the old genre. It's a updating of The Magnificent Seven, starring Danny Trejo, who's been getting a little notoriety lately.
Yes,
with his book and other things, and his acting. But it's kind of a wild ride movie, little comedy, even some horror elements, but big on adventure and action. And we shoot in Oklahoma. COVID Central next week.
Well, stay safe. Keep Danny Trejo alive. The man is a treasure.
It is. So that's our number one obligation, is keep Danny alive.
Keep Danny alive.
So that he lives for a sequel.
There you go. Yes, anything with Danny Trejo in it, we will all watch and
Awesome.
enjoy it. Or, really, are you a human being if you don't enjoy watching Danny Trejo? So, well, good luck with that. Stay safe.
I'm going to borrow that. Actually, you are not a human being unless you watch this Danny Trejo movie. But yes, thank you.
No problem. And for everyone to watch, thanks a lot. Joel, thank you again.
Appreciate it.
And we will talk to you next time. Everyone, take it easy. Thanks for watching.
Take care.